In recent times, the world has been experiencing seriously abnormal weather patterns. These last 5 years have seen Southern Africa deal with cataclysmic floods. The likes of Cyclone Dineo that crossed into Botswana, causing damage to not only local homesteads, but to business property as well. Farmers bemoaned drowned crops and livestock, setting them back dramatically on that profit. But before then, the country had been and is still grappling with unrelenting dry rainy seasons and an unyielding drought period, which needs no mention of the kind of impact it has on agriculture. All these environmental disasters have been attributed to ever-worsening global warming outcomes brought on by very high carbon emissions. Because of this, a local commercial bank in Botswana has shown a keen interest in green financing, calling for the financial sector to evolve to support environment, social and governance initiatives. From the bank, Rasegohetse Peresi speaks about what exactly green financing is and why the bank has taken particular interest in an otherwise unpopular sector in Botswana. Rasegohetse, thank you so much for coming on First Issues and affording us your time. We are talking green financing. Before we go any further, please explain what green financing is and how widespread it is in the country.
Thank you very much for having me, Bonataro. I think before we talk about green financing, we need to sort of show where it fits into the wider sustainable financing pool. Sustainable finance is really aimed at financial instruments that create social and economic value, taking into account ESG principles, ESG being environment, social, and governance issues. So environment would center around pollution reduction, energy efficiency, water efficiency, things that have a basic ecological impact on the environment, right? And then social issues would be centered around anything to do with gender, equality, poverty alleviation, employment creation, anything that has a positive impact on the communities within which we operate. And governance is really focused on the oversight of those issues. So the idea behind sustainable finance is to create instruments that allow corporates to match their financial as well as sustainability or social targets in their ordinary day of business. So ideally, whatever you're doing should have a net positive impact on the economy as well as the environment. That's the general idea behind sustainable finance. Now within that, there's a number of different instruments that are put in use, right, including green financing, which is basically a financing through which the use of proceeds is used for a green cause. Green being anything to do with a positive environmental impact. Right? Now, in terms of where we are as Botswana, I think we're in its relative nascency. Right? The conversations are beginning, and we're starting to see a greater emphasis on this by corporates as well as individuals in the country. And I think that's really driven by what investors want to see as well as where the consumers are.
So on the back of all of that, why has the bank taken a particular interest in green financing?
As a bank, and historically, as most people believe, everybody sees banks as cash first, profits first, ruthless sort of institutions. But I think we've evolved over the years to moving away from purely profit to moving to a point where we're screening harmful behavior that we don't want. That's sort of where you have environmental and social risk assessment frameworks where you're sort of eliminating activities that you deem to be harmful or to have a negative reputational impact on you, things such as arms trade, tobacco, alcohol, etc. To a point where we're no longer just screening, but we're also trying to positively impact the community, right? So we're trying to say we are trying to incentivize the funding of projects that do have some sort of ESG impact, right? So that is where we're moving to. So we are also able to contribute in ensuring that we live in a sustainable world, both economically and socially.
When talking about green projects, a lot of people would assume, or they just go to the solar panels, they're thinking windmills, repurposing plastic, that sort of thing, right? And these projects could be done at a very small scale to very large commercial undertakings, right? So now I want to know, how flexible is the bank in funding those projects that are not so common, the unorthodox ones that still wish to achieve the green mandate?
The idea behind what we are willing to fund is not really around whether it's something we've seen or we haven't seen, right? The focus is how is this project aligned to sustainable development goals? And I'll say that because most of sustainability finance or green projects are centered around, the common SDGs that we know. So the idea is just to demonstrate what kind of impact this would be having, right? Whether it's a social impact, if you're, say, training women for managerial roles, show us what the impact would be, and if it is a sustainable project, sustainable in the sense that it also needs to sort of prove a going concern status. It should be something that is economically beneficial as well, right? You should be able to make a return and should be able to sustain itself, right? If you're recycling tires, right, that's definitely a positive impact, right? You're reducing the amount of waste, you're reusing products, and it's really more around the circular economy. You're able to keep reusing stuff and reducing, the consumption patterns, right? So if that is the case, and you're able to come and say, I'm going to recycle tires, it's not your solar, it's not your wind, but this is the impact, these are the economics of the project, then we're willing to do that. And it's about us working together with clients or corporates to say, what are the targets that you're looking for? And allowing us to set KPIs and have a proper measurable way of monitoring these KPIs to ensure that the project does indeed achieve what it sets out to achieve. Because I mean, that's another problem with just accepting any type of project, right? You may say you're going to reduce this by 30, you're going to reduce your energy uses by 30%, but if we don't know how to properly measure that, or if your disclosure mechanisms are not sufficient to allow us to properly ascertain whether that has indeed been achieved, then essentially, you're using cheap money for the wrong purposes.
This program was brought to you in association with First National Bank of Botswana.